I think that the best way to do it would be to split the news videos today into final thoughts on the draft and the rest of the news, whatever that might be. So that's exactly what we're going to do. As the final night of the WWE draft took place last night on Monday, including the supplemental draft after Raw and the rounds during the show. Excuse me. We saw a number of NXT stars get drafted to the Monday nights, and we will not be going through every single one of the draft picks because I only selected the ones that are, I don't want to say worth talking about, but the ones that we could maybe break down a little bit more. And one of them is, or two of them are, NXT stars, or a few of them are NXT stars going to the main roster, with Indu Sheer and Jinder Mahal alongside Odyssey Jones getting called up to Monday Night Raw, and Grayson Waller getting moved to Friday nights. The fact of the matter is, I'm surprised partially. I feel like Jinder Mahal hadn't been down in NXT for too long, and that, if anything, you would keep him down in NXT a little bit longer with Hindu Sheer, because it hadn't been that long since he'd been up. It hadn't been too long ago since he was up on the main roster. So, with that being said, it's sort of like, how do you go the route of saying that, oh, he suddenly belongs on the main roster? It's like, I'm not saying Jinder doesn't, I'm just saying, sort of like with their logic of, what's his name? Riddick Moss, where they want people to think of Riddick Moss as Riddick Moss instead of Madcap, so they take him off the roster, they take him off TV for a bit, yada, 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 yada. It's the idea that it's not that easy. It's not that easy for people to forget, oh, that's Riddick Moss. It's going to take a little bit of time, so you got to invest the time to get people to forget. And basically what I'm saying is, with all that Jinder did on the main roster, it's going to take a little bit of time for people to be like, oh, well, now that he has two big guys behind him, that he's suddenly going to be good. You know what I mean? That's not how people are going to think about it. People are going to think about it, oh, it's Jinder Mahal, but he just has two big guys. The big guys are the good, he's the bad. He's just the mouthpiece. Which, to a degree, he is, but at the same time, I don't know if, people will view Jinder differently, I guess is the best way to put it. Odyssey Jones, I think, much like Zoe Stark and Zion Quinn, have untapped potential within the main within the WWE, because Odyssey Jones, I believe, had his rookie year stunted a little bit due to injury, and basically had some momentum flowing after the Breakout Battle Royal, or the Breakout Tournament. I think that's, or Top Prospect Tournament. I forget what it's called. But that NXT tournament where the prospects, try and break through, which I remember Odyssey Jones being a part of, and somebody else whose name is escaping me. But I also remember Odyssey Jones getting injured soon after the Breakthrough Tournament, and then recently returning. So I don't know if his potential, I don't know if I don't want to say he's not ready for the main roster, but I just don't know if he's proven enough in developmental to show that he has mounted all the possible potential on the main in developmental that he possibly could. But either way, props to Odyssey Jones and Indu Sheer for coming up to the main roster. And also, that's not enough, as SmackDown also nailed Grayson Waller, Cameron Grimes, and Pretty Deadly. I mean, fact of the matter is, if you wanted charisma on SmackDown, if you thought SmackDown needed charisma, the fact of the matter is, SmackDown has charisma in droves now, with Cameron Grimes, Pretty Deadly, and Grayson Waller. Grayson Waller is by far one of the guys that have the most potential on the main roster now to do 100 times more than what he has done. I mean, with Austin Theory and Grayson Waller, it's like two of the top prospects in WWE, both on the same brand. Cameron Grimes has all the potential to go to the moon. And Pretty Deadly, I mean, if you wanted Slamball Cowardice heels, there's nobody better than Pretty Deadly, and I think that the perfect cohorts for Pretty Deadly would have been the New Day, but the New Day are on Raw and not on SmackDown, so the fact of the matter is, maybe you want a hard-hitting rivalry, Pretty Deadly versus Ridge Holland and Butch. You know, the Brawling Brutes versus Pretty Deadly. Even though I would have loved to see Pretty Deadly interact with Maximum Male Models or the Alpha Academy or somebody like that, so I would prefer seeing Pretty Deadly on Raw, but props to them for coming up. And also, Kaden Carter and Katana Chance got moved up to the main roster. If there's any division in WWE that got hit with the draft or through the draft, it is the NXT Women's Division. NXT hit the refresh button, and that is something that I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that was much needed for NXT, as they'd been the same pretty much for the better part of the last year with the same people on top. So hitting the reset button for NXT was something that they really needed to do, and they did it. So props to NXT for that, and props to WWE for really hitting a home run with bringing the people up to the main roster, as that adds to Cameron Grimes, Pretty Deadly, Katana Chance, Kaden Carter, Grayson Waller, Odyssey Jones, Indu Sheer, Zoe Stark, JD McDonough, Indy Hartwell, the Women's Tag Team Champions, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, and probably one or two more other people that that names may have been escaping me. But the fact of the matter is, NXT is going to be a lot different on tonight, or maybe not tonight because the draft isn't in full effect yet. But next week on NXT, it's going to be a lot different because a lot of the people, including the women's champions, the women's tag team champions, are not going to be on the roster anymore. So things are going to be a lot different, and you will likely start seeing a lot of new faces appear on NXT because that's kind of the point of bringing people up to the main roster. Those people that occupied the space, like Katana Chance and Kaden Carter, and Indu Sheer, and Grayson Waller, and Pretty Deadly, and Odyssey Jones, and those guys that occupied the spots will be replaced by new people for them to get their opportunity to showcase what they can do in NXT. Finn Balor remains on Raw with the rest of the Judgment Day. That's the best decision WWE could have made, keeping Judgment Day together, as I think Finn Balor, alongside Seth Rollins, could be two of the top contenders for the new WWE World Heavyweight Championship. But we'll talk about that as we get closer to Night of Champions at the end of May, when they go to Saudi Arabia again, where we will crown the new world champion, as it will also, the picture for the world title will likely get clearer after Backlash. Tegan Nox, Emma, and Riddick Moss go to Raw, and Johnny Gargano stays on Raw with his wife, Dexter Lumis, and Indy Hartwell. The Way is back together to a degree, Austin Theory is the only member of the Way that is not with the group because he's also the only member of the group that is not a babyface. I do think to a degree Johnny being on SmackDown would have been better because it would have given Johnny the opportunity to start fresh on a new brand. But I don't think he's gotten going on Raw. So to be fair, I don't think he really needs a refresh. Emma, Tegan Nox, and Riddick Moss all are moving from from SmackDown to Raw. So all of them will get a new opportunity, an opportunity on a new brand. Riddick Moss, I think he has a lot of potential. I think Gargano still has untapped potential. Tegan Nox has untapped potential, as does Emma. I'm excited to see what happens with the draft. I'm excited to see what happens when the new rosters take shape after Backlash. And with that being said, that is it for this year's draft. Let me know down in the comment section below what your thoughts are on this year's draft, and I will see you in the next video.